Welcome to another edition of Love Brand You on Win Win Women. I'm Sam Rafis, your host for this metaphysical show about faith and inspiration for you to succeed in all areas of your life. As we do every week, I start out with the Love Brand You prayer, which I have to get in front of me. And I'm going to be honest here. I was chatting with my guest off camera. I was chatting with Holly, and then I went, oh, wait, we got to go live. So here we are, and I'm going to start the show, and then I'm going to talk to Holly. So, all right, here we go. If you want to take a deep breath, if you want to settle in, I like to say if you want to ground yourself and just feel these words, and we'll take us into the show. My God source loves me no matter what. I am always lovable and give myself compassion for everything I've ever done or not done. Love heals me more quickly than self-judgment. I choose love now for me and for everyone in my life. For this, I give thanks. I let it be so, and so it is. Amen.
Amen.
Whew. Well, welcome, Holly. Before I introduce you to her, those that are here joining us, and I just have to get to Holly's bio. So before I get to my conversation with Holly, the theme for this month, we're starting a new month already. I can't believe how fast the days go by. So the theme for this month is career and business. And I am joined by a fellow registered holistic nutritionist, Holly Dahl, who takes her clients from burned out business owners to bombshell CEOs by supporting women where conventional methods fall short, to take their health back into their own hands, no matter what stage of life they are at. She is a business and health strategist with an area of expertise in hormone health, which can often be the missing piece and the reason why so many women feel depleted, scattered, overwhelmed, burned out, and not able to fully show up in their business. Holly is on a mission to help women learn to find their natural rhythm to resting, working, playing, nourishing themselves, and create the income and impact they desire. So Holly, welcome as we talk about breaking the burnout cycle.
Thank you so much, Sam. I'm so just honored to be here.
Well, I think I talked to you, I don't know how long ago, and knew I wanted to have you on the show, and we finally made it work. So every time I have a guest, I say start us off with just a little bit of backstory and what brought you to what you're doing today.
Well, I originally got into nutrition because my kids had severe food allergies when they were little, and we were always at the doctor and they were always sick and on, prescriptions, and they had all these symptoms. And finally we took them to a naturopathic doctor, and they said they are so severely allergic to dairy, like do not give them any more dairy. And it was like a switch went off. The ear infections went away. My kids haven't been on antibiotics for 12 years now, And so I saw the power of food and how healing it was. And I got really hungry for the information because I had struggled with an eating disorder in my past. And I thought, okay, there has to be more. And so then I ended up going to school for nutrition, which I just loved so much. I ended up going back to work in the dental field just because of some circumstances with my husband and his job. And I ended up leaving because I was so burnt out. But a couple weeks later, what do? I find myself enrolled in a business school, and now I'm an entrepreneur and I'm in the hustle culture, and I've got this new business and I'm so excited, and I have no boundaries. I'm a people pleaser, and I literally just end up in another cycle of burnout. And I feel like a fraud because I'm a health practitioner teaching health, teaching people how to be healthy, what they need to eat, what they need to do, and I'm in burnout. So I started noticing a trend that women were coming to me for different things, but the underlying issue was always that they were so burnt out. Their hormones were a mess, and most of them were business owners and entrepreneurs. And so I've kind of merged this taking these women from burned out business owners to Bombshell CEOs, because it really is a management of energy. And I had to learn that for myself the really, really hard way. And so now I've got this path and this process for women. And I know that hormones are one of those things that, we kind of talk about them and we hear about them. They are so important to your energy, to your vitality, to, I feel, your purpose, your energy, your income, your impact, all the things.
I find myself just nodding every time I have a guest, that especially because I can relate. I can relate to what you're talking about, in the sense of being a mom, being a business owner, and thinking that it has to be a certain way. Mm-hmm. Thinking that you have to be, superwoman at everything, and not letting people see that you yourself might be feeling that. When you're saying, I felt like a fraud, I felt like, I wasn't well, that you're putting on the front.
Absolutely.
So take us more into that, because I think when you and I were talking before we came on recording, I liked how you said, we need to talk about the things that people don't want to talk about.
Well, I think, even when I got out of nutrition school, it was very like surface level things, looking at people's food journals and giving them nutrition plans and, helping them with exercise and things like that. Yeah. And then I got into the hormones and I got into the burnout, and I noticed this pattern, this underlying pattern in myself and in almost every single one of my clients. And it always starts with a trauma. Starts with a trauma, then that leads to a self-worth, self-esteem issue that leads to these destructive behaviors, which inevitably will take you into burnout. Now, when we hear lots of people throw around trauma, and I think people have to understand that this doesn't have to be a big trauma. This doesn't mean you were unloved.
Doesn't mean give us some examples.
Yeah, doesn't mean you were unloved, you were neglected, you were abused. Literally being bullied is a trauma. And I mean, some people would argue that that is a big trauma. Anytime that that you don't feel safe, that your body gets that message that it's not safe. So I'll share something really vulnerable with you guys. I peed my pants in grade 1. I had a male teacher, and I was like, can I go to the bathroom? And he said no. And literally, I just peed my pants. He was like, well, you can go now. And so what kind of message does that send to a child about safety, security, trusting people, you're having your basic needs met? I think that that's something that has really impacted me, actually. So looking back now on these things, being bullied, working in a toxic environment for a really long time, all these things have an impact because you're trying to overcompensate, right? You end up like wanting to please people and control the situation and avoid the difficult emotions. And so if you can do that, if you can manage that with these behaviors, right? People pleasing, lack of boundaries, just constantly overextending yourself, you end up paying. Like inevitably, these destructive behaviors lead to burnout later on. And I would have to say it's almost like every single one of my clients has had some type of trauma.
And when it comes out, like when your clients are coming to you, so you're helping your clients more with business, but it comes out with the personal side of hormone health. Am I getting that right?
Well, the hormones, it's like the management of the energy, right? Like we need to take care of ourselves, but we are so used to just basically lighting ourselves on fire to keep other people warm. I mean, even if you think of in a business, if you're always people pleasing, and if you don't have boundaries, and if you're not charging what you're worth, if you're getting caught up in hustle culture, like all these things, right? That takes a toll on the physical body. But because you've had these past traumas and you probably haven't dealt with them because you probably maybe don't even realize that that is a trauma, you're packing that little bag of trauma right into the front door of your business. And we only see the pretty things on social media. Like we don't see the women who are in bed on the weekend recovering so that they can get through the next week. We don't see the women who are closing the doors to their businesses.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting connection to make. The burnout is a hormone problem, but underneath that it's some sort of trauma. Usually, I talk a lot about like saboteur programming. So everyone has a judge. I like to call her the bitch. Can I say that?
Yeah, you can say
Okay.
whatever.
Okay. And so, but there's other players that come in. So you might be a hyperachiever. You might be hypervigilant. You might be a controller, a pleaser, an avoider. And so I really like to look at that. And then it's always my clients are like, oh, where did this come from? And then they start telling me about these childhood experiences. And it's quite mind blowing. So then when we're looking at business and when we're looking at, doing things in the business and the basically like their purpose, their income that they want to create, their impact, we are looking at where are these things showing up.
Yeah. So give me an example, and those of you that are watching, you know that in past episodes I've talked probably with other women about this, but I also talk about this in my work too, that this is why I love having this conversation with Holly, because if you are not believing and having that self-love, and we hear these terms all the time. We hear them all the time. However, like I'll have clients say to me, well, how much do you think I should charge for this program? How much should I charge for my coaching? How much should I charge? And I had to learn for myself, but I always go back with how much you believe. How much you could save $5, you could save 500, you could save 5,000 for a service. If you believe it, you'll get that money.
Yeah.
So taking that back to, I don't know why I thought of that, but it's such a key thing, because I think a lot of women that we work with, if they're trying to have us help them with their business is about money.
It is.
Whether you want to, like, we're altruistic. Holly, we're helpers. I call us helpers and healers.
Yeah.
We want to help, but we still have a business and we still deserve to get paid. So when they come to you with that, what are some of the coping mechanisms for what they're dealing with, and how does the coping come into helping them, I guess?
Well, I mean, a lot of them have like the unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? They're up all night on their phone. They're numbing out with social media. They're over exercising. They're not eating all day, and then they're eating at night. It's like coffee and, all these things that add stress to the body. And so we know that when the body doesn't feel safe, or when it's not fed and when it's not nourished, that it will kick out cortisol, which is your stress hormone. And the thing that happens with, I would say, a lot of women is we don't close these stress cycles. So when I heard about this, when I first kind of stumbled upon this research, I was really excited, because I thought, I've been telling my clients to do this for years, like breathing and laughing and, exercising and connection. But I didn't realize it was actually helping them close the loop, because otherwise you're getting stuck in the fight, flight, freeze. It's so exhausting to live in that state when it's meant to be temporary. So you can literally have like all these stressful situations that have compounded over the years because you've never actually closed the loop. It's kind of like if you have an Apple Watch, like closing I don't have one, but that's what my clients have told me. So it goes back to closing those loops, because when we stay in that, that's where the burnout comes from, is staying in those stress activating responses, like that fight, flight, freeze. And here's the thing, and I think this is really important for women to know, is that your body will start that stress response when there's any stress, when there's physical stress. So, maybe someone broke into your house, or someone's chasing you, or you have to get out of the situation. There's anticipated stress, which aren't women good at this one, right? Oh. We hear a ping on our phone. It's like, oh my gosh. Or we're thinking about something. You might have a meeting with a client, or maybe you're doing a podcast interview tomorrow, and you are just like going on in your head about like all these things that could happen. You have no idea, but you're making up these stories in your head. And then there's perceived stress. So you could be thinking about something that happened before. You could perceive yourself to be in a situation that's not safe, and it just triggers that old trauma, and it starts you into that stress response. So you kick out cortisol, and you're in essentially a fight, flight, freeze response. So you need to close the loop somehow, and that's where, you know, a lot of the work I do is regulating the nervous system, because that's actually where it starts. Is the body does not feel safe, and starts in the brain down to the nervous system, and it starts that whole response. So we don't know how to live feeling safe, Sam.
Yeah. And give us an example. I always say I learn better experientially. So give me an example of, and I know client confidentiality and all of that.
Yeah.
I'm aware of that, but maybe, you know, change up the situation a bit, or, you know, change the names, or however, just share a success story, because I think we can learn from that.
Yeah, well, I recently worked with a woman. She was an art gallery owner, and she was an artist, and she couldn't paint. She couldn't paint. She'd had a lot of stress and trauma and cycles of burnout. So I worked with her to, you know, essentially get her to paint again, because that was also for her something that she wanted to do, and it was something that would help her close those loops for her. That was her creativity, but that's also how she made her money. So it was like, by not closing these loops, she was blocking herself from receiving that abundance. And so it is different for each person. I would say everyone has like a unique path, but I have basically the same process that I use with clients. We're looking for energy leaks. Where are the energy leaks? In the business, in the life, in your health, and we're working on a plan to recoup that energy. And then it's, you know, it's implementing these things, daily small things that we can do to help regulate ourselves and really close those loops. Because the problem is, what do people say? Women say, I'm so burnt out, I need a holiday, right? Go on your 7-day all-inclusive. You basically, your symptoms are gone while you're there. You're like, oh, this is just what I needed. You get back 3 days later, a week later, boom, they're back. The symptoms are back with a vengeance, because when you were gone, the stressors weren't there. Your body was still dealing with the stress, but you come back, now the stress is still here, but now the stressors are there, like the day-to-day stressors. So how can we manage things so that you're not always in this constant state of stress and reactivity? And this is where also the hormones come in, because cortisol, our stress hormone, your body will make cortisol. It will continue to make cortisol because it's meant to keep you alive. It starts to steal from other hormones like progesterone. And I don't think enough women know about progesterone. I think that some women could benefit from bioidentical hormones. That's like a completely other conversation. But imagine progesterone is this warm blanket, this cup of tea. It calms you, it soothes you. It works with your GABA receptors. It helps you sleep. It works with your nervous system. It works with your thyroid to help you burn fat. When your cortisol levels are high, it's going to make more, it's going to steal from progesterone, and you're really going to feel that shift. So you might be feeling reactive, like you just, you know, the reaction is not appropriate for the situation. Maybe you lose your temper on your spouse or your kids or a client or your team or whatever. But I always say, like, it's not them, it's actually the burnout. It's the burnout.
When you say that, I just find it so fascinating. And when I sit here for a moment and I gather myself and I look off, because I see my eyes going off, you know, and I'm thinking, it literally is, I'm thinking about the best question I can ask you in the given amount of time that we have for these 30-minute interviews, because there's Holly and I could talk for hours. So I'm trying to think of the right question that could still deliver some deep information. So when you're talking about progesterone, and I know we could have a long conversation on that, and I know we're not treating, we're not diagnosing, this is a conversation, but based on your experience. I always like to say based on our experience, because we are both in the holistic health field. So based on your experience and the number of women you've worked with, and can you give an example of that when you're talking progesterone?
Well, it's like you see it in the symptoms, right? And of course, when we think about progesterone and estrogen, they regulate the menstrual cycle. So as soon as that progesterone is lower, then we're going to have symptoms that are linked to higher estrogen. So breast tenderness, weight gain, headaches, moodiness, like disrupted sleep, things like that. And it doesn't have that progesterone to kind of take it down. Also, long-term stress tanks your thyroid. So people that have, lower progesterone levels, the high cortisol, lower progesterone, higher estrogen, but then we get the thyroid hormones in there. So you're really dealing with a lot of things. There's a lot of symptoms. And I think my biggest beef is that, a lot of women are told that's normal. It's just the way it is, especially once you turn 40. So once you get into perimenopause, you got lower progesterone levels as it is. So if you are someone who has been really stressed, you get into perimenopause, it can be a challenge. There's definitely a lot of things that we can do to support the body, but I see you, I hear you, and you're not, it's not normal, it's not common, it's not,
I shake my head with that. And the reason that I'm leaning in, and from a era that I'm in, over 50, I'm in that category, and women in my category, so many are on thyroid medication. And I'm almost the anomaly when people go, "What? You're not on anything?" And it's like, and that's what I mean by it's normalized. It's normalized, even in my circle. And I am not discounting anything. Please understand, I am a proponent for, whatever you need to do with your health, and we all need to do what we need to do. I am not knocking anything. I'm just saying that it's been normalized, and that's the part that makes me feel sad, because it isn't normal.
Yeah, it is sad. And I feel like, I just had one of my clients say to me, like, you're the first coach that's been able to motivate me and really give me that hope that I can get better. When I have calls with my clients, they're literally crying, I'm crying. I have a lot of clients who they have that like hyper vigilant state. So it's that constant not feeling safe. It's that constant, like, I need to think of everything that could possibly go wrong with this situation. And if my husband isn't answering his phone, like, he probably died, like literally, but this is a trigger from childhood, right? So imagine living like that. Of course you're going to be burnt out. Of course those hormone levels are going to be just crazy out of whack, because you have been in that stressed out state for so long that your body doesn't know how to relax. I always get ticked off because it's like, well, you just need to learn to relax.
Yeah.
I freaking wish I could. These poor women. How can you run a business like that?
Yeah.
It's got to stop.
I agree. And we're so on the same page. I have, I've gone through periods in my life where I've been a little bit more jacked up, in, reactive. And anyway, I would say probably at least the last 10 years, my goal was always to be as calm as I could be, that nothing is wrong. Everything's okay. And it took a lot of practice in the beginning. It took a lot of, I said, I used to, meditate. I used to do everything I could just to calm that down and just go, we need to do it. And it was probably one of the best things I have ever done for myself, because now I can bring myself down very quickly. Even when something happens, I'm like, no, whoa, no, I'm not, this is not the way I want to feel. And I have women or clients, and they say, that's one of the things that I like of learning from you, is just being calm, just being like it. To me, the hustle culture has really done a disservice to women in business. Because we're always feeling like, and I was there too, Holly, at the beginning. I hustled and thought I just had to do more and more and more, and just became burned out. So for me, it was like, no, I'm not going to do this. And I went, pendulum swings one way, you go the other way. However, for the sake of my health and my sanity, I needed to. So when you are working with women,
Yeah.
Where do you start? I want to talk about so much. We've got a few minutes left. Where do you start? And before we end up, I want to make sure that women know how to get a hold of you. So I need you to tell us where you can send people.
Yeah.
I want you to give your best tips. Anyway,
Yeah.
Where do you start?
Well, you know what? It's a lot of the deep work. And I think when women come to me now, they're not looking for a meal plan or an exercise program or some, affirmations. Like, they know this is the real work. So this is what I say. This is what I do for my clients. I take their life and I go like this. This is what we're going to focus on. This is what needs to change. It could be one thing. It could be three things. I mean, it could be more than that, but we are going to start so simple so that you feel safe, so that you feel like you can do this and you can put these in the day-to-day things. And one thing I will say about burnout is I feel like when you've been in burnout, like when you've experienced burnout and cycles of burnout, it's like an addiction. You're always in recovery. So for myself, like I have to be a parent to myself. I had very loving parents growing up, but now I have to be that parent to myself. Holly, you need to have protein in the morning. You can't have coffee on an empty stomach.
We're high-fiving each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can't go on your phone for the first hour of your day, because remember, your brain is going to kick out a stress response if you see something. We are bombarded with stuff we have zero control over. That's not a good way to start your day. Yeah. Really think about taking care of yourself, just being more intentional, I think. And like you said, just really calming. Like, I loved how you started this session off, because I always start that with my clients. We don't do a prayer, but it's like, hey, a deep breath in, sigh out, give yourself a little hug, just ground yourself, take that time. We don't take that 5-10 seconds during the day to do that. It's so easy. 90 seconds of deep breathing and calm breathing, it can get you out of that stressed out state back into the rest and digest. It's so easy. Your breath is free. Yeah. You always have it with you.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. So where can people get a hold of you?
Well, you can come to my website. It's hollyangeladoll.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I think I'm just Holly Doll on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, Holly Angela Doll, and Facebook, Holly Angela Doll. And I also have my Facebook personal profile open. It's Holly Doll. So
I'll make sure I've got those in the links for sure.
Yes.
Give us a sneak peek on your program right now. You let me know that you are starting a new program right now. Or do you have an intake coming up, or like what's up with the new program?
I would love to move towards more of a group program, but I find with a lot of my clients, they really need that one-on-one hand-holding at first. So I'm still offering that, like life and business reset, like let's go like this. Yeah. And get you organized and get you feeling good. And then I'm going to have a group program, because another thing I'm finding is when you're burnt out, you just like default to isolation sometimes. So when you start to feel better, if you have that connection with other women, it's huge. You know what it's like, Sam, even sometimes being an entrepreneur, it's freaking lonely. Yeah. Even if you do have a team, you're still feeling like, alone. So I feel like those connections and just support and knowing that you're not alone and you're not crazy. I'll end on that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the more that we talk about it, and you and I have talked about this too, that the more we talk about it and bring it out, and as women that work with women, if we can, if we can be vulnerable and share some of the things that we've gone through in a way that we can lead and help others, I think it just opens the door more for other women to go, oh, wait a second, maybe I can talk about this. Yeah, because some of it's scary, and it's so vulnerable, and you do kind of feel like, am I going crazy? Like, is this really happening to me? Yeah. And when you're told, oh, nothing's wrong with you, this is normal, oh, all of the usual things, but you're feeling differently. And one thing I always say is, no matter what we're working on as a coach, as whatever we're working on, I want you to default to what works. Like, I want you to check in here. I want you to
Yes.
check in here and go, even if I might suggest something,
Yes.
if it feels off, because your feelings are always the barometer,
Yeah,
always.
exactly.
So start trusting your feelings.
Yeah. I always say that to my clients. Your voice is louder than mine.
Oh, I like that. Oh, I'm going to remember that one.
Yes.
Okay. Last words of wisdom to you.
Oh, I'm like, how am I going to keep this short? I want the women out there to know that there's hope, that you can get better. But you have to be the one. You have to be the one to, I'm reading this book right now. It's called The Big Leap. And he said, life is like golf. You have to hit the ball. I'm really passionate about keeping women in positions of power in important roles. I'm passionate about keeping women in business. We are going to change the world, but we can't do that if we're burnt out. But you can get better. I've got better. My clients have got better. And we got work to do, ladies. It's go time.
and we're together on this. Okay,
right.
Holly, thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna take us out with our closing affirmation. I will have it, especially when I upload to YouTube. I've put all of the links there. You guys, you know the drill. That if you want to find Holly, you'll be able to find her throughout all the links that I'll have there. Thank you again, Holly. And I am going to find the closing. Oh, you're welcome. Going to find the closing affirmation. And here we go. All right. I am fortunate and grateful to attract healthy, happy, brilliant women from around the world who generously share their wisdom, knowledge, and ideas with me. For this, I give thanks. I let it be so, and so it is. Amen.
Amen.